All right, let's go ahead and finish up this little guy, and then we'll start another video on carving the little cane pole, and we'll put it all together, get him painted, and we'll have us a little piece here, in other words. Okay. Alright, we're just gonna kind of do some things here. Along here, kind of removes a little bit more of this. Alright, we're going to come to the back here. We're going to run a few little wrinkles in these pants, which is just basically V-cuts. Just run them along here, just some V-cuts in the pants. Put a few in this area. Just a few, not a whole lot, just kind of give it a okay. I'm gonna cut a few up in here, just a few to give it kind of a country look. We're gonna even make a little cut in here. Up here. Just kind of giving the finishing touches. You can do this with a V-tool as well. Let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and put some soles on these shoes. That. I forgot today was MLK Day. You know, when you're retired, you know, one of the things we never did, the place that I worked, we never did have many holidays, even MLK Day and stuff like that. I mean, the people that didn't work shift, they had holidays, but shift worker, we hardly had any. I mean, we worked our holidays all the time because we didn't have, you know, when you're in an operation that works 24/7 on, and you're on call all the time, well, you basically follow their rules, and we just didn't have, so holidays didn't mean a whole lot to us. I mean, it meant extra pay, but you know, it's kind of like a policeman's and people like that. In other words, when you're on 24/7, you work. So we worked those days, and so it wasn't any different. I remember when they shot Martin Luther King. I remember that day very well. It was all over the news, and he was in let's see, Alabama, I believe is what it was, yeah, where he was shot, and it was all over the news. I didn't, at that time as a young man, I didn't follow politics. I follow politics a lot more today than I do any time. Maybe because I've seen such a change in politics. But like any young person, I didn't do a lot of following of politics and world, you know, we were young, and so we didn't really get into a lot of that stuff back then. But I remember the day that John F. Kennedy was killed. I was in middle school, and I remember it very well because they announced it over the speaker. That a lot of the teachers were weeping, crying, and stuff like that. JFK was a very well-loved president, and no matter how anyone felt about him, he was extremely loved. And because of it, a lot of people, you know, and then Bobby Kennedy was murdered. I remember that day. And of course Martin Luther King, many others and stuff like that. James Earl Ray was the man who shot Martin Luther King. And it was in a motel, and they were kind of looking out, I think is what. Let me get my large gouge. I want to find it here. And they, here we go. I just want to come in on these ears. Always put your hand behind these ears when you're working with them so they don't break or anything like that, because usually they're pretty tough, but you never know. There could be a weak spot in them. I'm just going to the inside of the ear here. And they announced that Dr. King had been murdered or had died during that situation. Was a pretty sad day. It was a very sad day, and people everywhere were saddened by it. The 60s were a turbulent time. A very, very turbulent time, and I'm not just talking about racial stuff. I'm talking about everything. The 60s was a very turbulent time, and the reason I think is because a lot of things were changing at that time, and because they were changing, there was a lot of turbulence and issues going on. And segregation was going on, and of course there was a lot of protesting to that. So there was the 60s were not a, let me get my, there we go. Okay, now let's see, let's go ahead and, I'm gonna kind of put the eye in here. There. And let me draw one over here. Okay. And all I'm simply going to do is just, I'm going to take my knife and I'll cut the outside here. And I'm going to cut the outside here. And I'm going to move around. Kind of come around it, start to take. Okay, and it was a very, very turbulent time in the 60s. There was a lot of opposition. The Vietnam War, a lot of opposition to the Vietnam War, a lot of opposition just to the way things were, the country was run, the way things were. And just a lot of turbulence and backlash and things like that. And then civil rights came in, and it was a, just going to kind of put a, okay. It was a very, very turbulent time in the 60s. And just, I don't know how to explain it. It was very turbulent. And it was just, the times were changing. You know, Bob Dylan sang a song called "The Times They Are Changing," and that's exactly what happened in the turbulent 60s. And you know, there was the flower people and the Rainbow Coalition and the people that were basically, you know, Woodstock. It was a number of things that came out of that era. And what we're going to do is, let me find my a very, oh come on, let me find my V-tool here. Well, I am so sorry. Where is my V-tool? It's gotta be down here. There it is. I'm sorry. I'll tell you what. All right, I'm gonna make our little mustache. No, that's not a V-tool. That's a small gouge. Well, what in the world has happened to my V-tool? I know I got it here somewhere. Oh gosh. There it is. I knew I'd find it sooner or later. All right, I'm just gonna make a little. Kind of a, thing here. Okay, just kind of doing a little stuff there. And bring this down here a little bit further. All right, giving you a little mustache there. Okay. That was quite a period back in then. Back in the 60s. A little. And God, here we go. Just like that. And we're just gonna go around here, taking some of these machine marks out of here. Now, I guess we can go ahead and let's go ahead and do a little, just a little bit of, hair markings on our top of our head and stuff. Doesn't have to be a whole lot, but just a few as we come along here. Just to give it a little character. It's just to give it a little bit of character. In the original one, he doesn't add any hair, but I'm going to just do a little bit here. And living during the 60s was quite a event because there was so much taking place. When I got out of school in '71, I went to the military. I worked a little bit for a while, and then I went into the Air Force. And the Vietnam War was starting to sort of slow down at that time. And so I served my time and got out. But I remember how turbulent it was at that time with the people and individuals. It's a scary time for a lot of people. But a lot of great music came from the 60s. A lot of great music. Of course, the Beatles were the big hit of the 60s. When they came from Liverpool to the United States, I remember the Ed Sullivan show when the Beatles first appeared. on the Ed Sullivan Show, and that was a big break for them. I mean, if you were going to be anything back then, you needed to appear on the Ed Sullivan Show. I know that. Even Elvis, all these people on this Ed Sullivan Show. And so if you were really going to be anybody or be anything, and that's what I mean, the Beatles first came on Ed Sullivan and just skyrocketed them. I mean, it did. It was a variety show that had all different types of acts and things like that. And Jim Morrison and the Doors, they all appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. Although there were some, I don't think he angered Ed Sullivan. I mean, Ed Sullivan, no matter what anybody thought of him, he was a very powerful man who controlled a lot of things. So he was very, very powerful. He can make or break you, I'll tell you what. And so the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan, and I think when the Doors appeared, he told them to take something out of their song, a word out of their song, something like, you know, it was, you have to understand, and those that didn't live in the 60s, that things were, you still had the censors in TV and stuff who overwatched what was being said. And I think in his Light My Fire song, he said we couldn't get much higher or something like that, and Sullivan wanted him to say something else. I don't know what it was, but when he went on, he said the same thing, and mocking Ed Sullivan. And of course, that just basically ended. It was Sullivan. You didn't cross this guy. I mean, you just didn't. Even though the Doors went on to be very successful, Ed Sullivan would not allow them to come back. I don't think he allowed them to come back. Maybe he did. I don't know. But that was a big thing. That's why I say when the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan, I mean, that was just a boost that was beyond measure in their popularity. Okay, well, we've got the eyes, we've got